Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire for the March for Lolita. Like I said, my name is James Glover, and I'm Vice President of the Shutdown Palace campaign to Relier to Lolita.
It's not working.
It is, it's just not that loud.
It's not very loud. It's working, it's just not very loud. Really? It's working?
Turn all the way up. Hello? Hello? That's
Now it's
right.
not working.
Yeah, now it's not working. Testing, testing. So I should talk louder? Okay. Yes. My name is James Glover, and I'm Vice President of the Shutdown Palace campaign to retire Lolita and board member of the New Hampshire Animal Rights League. Thank you everyone for joining us today in Portsmouth to help raise awareness for Lolita and all cetaceans in captivity. We have some amazing speakers lined up for you today, and the march is followed by a beam and potluck at Fort Tree Island. Two things brought me here to be standing here today: my love for orcas and the movie Blackfish. As a kid, I was obsessed with all three Free Willy movies. I followed the story of the orca featured in the movie named Keiko. He was in a tiny tank in Mexico, moved to the Oregon Coastal Aquarium, and spent 5 years back in the ocean. All because millions of people demanded and helped make it happen. My grandmother also brought me to SeaWorld as a child. As a young before I saw the movie Blackfish, I had never given orca captivity much thought. As a young, naive person, I always thought, if something was wrong, why would the government let it happen? As most of us learn, that is not always the case. After I saw Blackfish, I started to do my own research, watched and read a lot of context on both sides of the argument for and against orca captivity, coming to the conclusion that orca captivity needed to come to an end. There is no way an intelligent, social, and large being such as an orca can thrive in a captive situation. I would wonder how I could help the orcas at SeaWorld. I live too far away to protest at those places, and I don't have the education to be a marine biologist. So one day, by searching the internet, I came across a post from a woman named Wendy King. She was the president of the Shutdown Palace campaign, and she was looking for someone to host events in New Hampshire on behalf of an orca named Lolita at the Miami Seaquarium. I became team captain for the Shutdown Palace events in New Hampshire and hit the ground running with the support of New Hampshire Animal Rights League. Shutdown Palace started nationwide rallies for Lolita in 2015 after Palace Entertainment purchased the Miami Seaquarium. People always ask me, what does a whale in Miami have to do with parks in New Hampshire? Or, my all-time favorite, there's a whale at Water Country? No, there's no whale at Water Country, but New Hampshire does have ties with orca captivity. Water Country and Storyland here in New Hampshire are owned by the same company, Palace Entertainment, that owns Miami Seaquarium, which is directly responsible for Lolita's continued suffering. No matter if you're buying a ticket to see Lolita at the Miami Seaquarium or a ticket to ride your favorite rides at Storyland and Water Country, the money is going to the same place, the same people who profit off using animals for human entertainment. I once heard someone say, by not supporting one, you condemn the other, which fits our purpose at the Shutdown Palace campaign. Shutdown Palace and New Hampshire Animal Rights League have held protests outside of Water Country once a month since 2015 during the summer months. Also tabling and hosting events with the help of Occupy New Hampshire Seacoast. People have the right to know what their money is really supporting when they buy a ticket to a Palace Entertainment-owned park. Lolita has been held captive at the Miami Seaquarium for the past 47 years. She was taken from her mother in the wild at about 3 years old and forced to live in the smallest orca tank in the United States. For 10 years, Lolita had a tank mate named Hugo. In 1980, Hugo committed suicide by banging his head against the concrete wall until he died. Since then, Lolita has had no other orca companion in her tank. Lolita now shares the tank with Pacific white-sided dolphins that are changed out every so often. The dolphins who share Lolita's tank regularly rake her skin with their teeth, leaving her painful wounds, according to testimony released from a recent court case. Lolita lives in a tank that is 20 feet deep, and being 20 feet long, she can't even dive to get away from the intense Florida heat. Lolita's tank violates the Animal Welfare Act requirements, which states that the size of the tank must be 48 feet from one side to the other. Lolita's tank is only 35 feet from the front wall to the concrete barrier. People have been demanding the release of Lolita for decades. Numerous petitions have been brought against the courts in the United States. Every time the outcome was not in favor of Lolita or her freedom. Lolita could be safely retired to a seaside sanctuary in her coastal waters in Seattle, Washington. For this to happen, owners of the Miami Seaquarium the owners of the Miami Seaquarium Palace Entertainment must accept the excellent proposal by Orca Network, or be court-ordered to release her. Lolita would be placed in a netted-off cove, cared for by marine mammal scientists 24/7. She could finally enjoy life again. Plenty of room to dive, swim, and even maybe one day communicate with her pod. Tuesday, August 8th, will mark the 47th year Lolita has been in captivity. 47 years away from her family. 47 years doing tricks for food. 47 years in a 20-foot deep pool. 47 years wondering what she did wrong to end up here. 47 years wanting to go home. Don't you think it's time for Lolita to be able to be retired?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Lolita!
Thank you.
Save the orcas!
Woo! Woo!
I'd like to finish by thanking the New Hampshire Animal Rights League, Occupy New Hampshire Seacoast, and all the amazing people I have met. Your support and dedication to Lolita has been a huge help to making it so Lolita will feel the ocean again. Now please, go ahead. Yeah. Thank you. Now welcome Delci Winters. Delci is Vice President and Deputy General Counsel of Captive Animal Law Enforcement for the PETA Foundation. Oh, don't put that too close.
Can you hear me? Now?
Oh, maybe I was talking on the wrong side. Nice.
All right. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for coming out on behalf of Lolita. I'm really glad to be here. As James said, I'm Vice President and Deputy General Counsel for Captive Animal Law Enforcement for the PETA Foundation, and I and my colleagues at those organizations have been advocating for Lolita for many years. And I want to talk today a little bit about those efforts, and particularly about our efforts in the courtroom on her behalf and where those efforts stand. So, as a captive endangered orca, Lolita is supposed to be protected by not just one, but two federal statutes, the Animal Welfare Act and the Endangered Species Act. But for decades, those laws and the agencies that enforce them have failed Lolita miserably. But PETA is pushing for those laws to be properly enforced and protected under those laws. So first, the Animal Welfare Act. When it was originally enacted in 1966, the Animal Welfare Act protected just a narrow category of animals who were bred for research. But just a few years later, in 1970, Congress amended that statute to cover numerous other categories of animals, including all warm-blooded animals used for exhibition. So, for almost the entire time that Lolita has been held at the Miami Seaquarium, she has been ostensibly protected by the Animal Welfare Act. But unfortunately, what the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which is supposed to enforce the Animal Welfare Act, did is immediately turn around and promulgate a regulation exempting captive marine mammals from the protections of the Animal Welfare Act. This is just one of many examples of the USDA's notoriously lax enforcement of the Animal Welfare Act. And it wasn't until almost a decade after Congress had amended the Animal Welfare Act that, after pressure from the Marine Mammal Commission, the U.S. Department of Agriculture finally adopted standards to protect captive marine mammals. And as you probably know, and as James indicated, those standards were and remain today woefully inadequate. still provides some baseline requirements, and for nearly 40 years, this aquarium has violated even those bare minimum standards, including the space requirement and the requirement that Lolita receive shade. So as a result, Lolita is held not just in the tiniest orca tank in America or in North America, but we believe in all of the world there is no smaller orca tank. You heard about how tiny her tank is and how she can't even dive at all or travel any meaningful distance. Orcas in the wild travel up to 140 miles every single day and dive hundreds of feet deep. Because she can't dive deep and because she has inadequate shade, Lolita suffers from painful sunburns and blisters, and she reportedly has dry, wrinkly skin, cracked skin, and a former trainer even stated that her skin often cracks and bleeds. The lack of adequate shade also aggravates an inflammatory eye condition that Lolita has suffered from for decades. And as you've also heard, Lolita has been without the company of a single other orca since 1980 when Hugo rammed his head into the side of the tank. Orcas are extremely social, and since 2001, the Federal Animal Welfare Act has required that marine mammals who are primarily social in the wild must have the companionship of at least one compatible animal of the same or biologically related species. But, as you heard, Lolita is confined with Pacific white-sided dolphins, a species with which she is not compatible and would not normally interact with in the wild. These dolphins routinely rake her skin with their teeth, sometimes so severely that she needs to be treated with antibiotics to prevent infection. In fact, Lolita is very heavily medicated. This aquarium administers her antibiotics, antifungals, pain medication, steroids, hormones, antacids, and other medications to treat infections, ulcers, and other ailments, all caused by her captivity. According to this aquarium's own veterinary records, in the year 2015, there was not a single day in which Lolita did not receive at least one medication for a health condition directly related to her captive conditions. Lolita has also developed permanent damage to her teeth, most likely from gnawing at the sides and gates of her tiny tank out of sheer boredom and frustration. To try and prevent infection, this aquarium has drilled into her sensitive teeth more than a dozen times, likely exposing nerve tissue and causing her significant pain. So this long-suffering, intelligent, and lonely animal has nothing to do but engage in abnormal stereotypic behaviors, like swimming around in the same pattern and rubbing against the side of her tank, the orca equivalent of a chained elephant swaying back and forth, or a caged bear pacing the perimeter of his cage. So what has the U.S. Department of Agriculture done about these clear violations of the Animal Welfare Act and Lolita's immense suffering? Absolutely nothing. In fact, on occasions, the agency has bent over backwards to facilitate this aquarium's violations. It's devised bizarre stories as to why, for example, the dolphins who torment Lolita are compatible with her, or how her tank meets minimum size requirements, despite the fact that it is obstructed by a massive concrete platform that's about 45 feet long and 5 feet wide. Just 2 months ago, the USDA's own Office of Inspector General issued a damning report finding that the USDA has allowed Lolita to be kept in a tank that, quote, may not meet all space requirements defined by the agency's regulations, and that may deny her sufficient space for adequate freedom of movement. The Inspector General also found fault with the agency's enforcement of its shade requirements, finding that inspectors were not consistently applying those regulations, potentially resulting in health and safety issues for the animals. This is hardly the first time the Office of Inspector General has found fault with the USDA's enforcement of the Animal Welfare Act. Over the past 25 years, the OIG has issued a series of damning reports consistently condemning the abysmal enforcement of our nation's most important animal welfare law. The PETA and others refuse to stand idly by while the agency tasked with protecting animals fails them. Administrative agencies in the United States have immense discretion, and it's often impossible to challenge their actions or inactions. But there's one thing agencies can't do, and that's violate the law. And that's why PETA, along with the coalition, is right now suing the U.S. Department of Agriculture for issuing an Animal Welfare Act license to Palace Entertainment for the Miami Seaquarium. When Palace Entertainment bought this aquarium in 2014, it was required to get its own Animal Welfare Act license. And under the Animal Welfare Act, the USDA cannot legally issue a license unless the applicant demonstrates full compliance with all of the animal welfare standards. As I hope I've convinced you, this aquarium is failing miserably on numerous fronts, including the space requirement, even though they're woefully outdated and meager, the shade requirements, and the social requirements. So this lawsuit on Lolita's behalf is currently pending in federal district court in Miami, and we hope to have that license overturned, and I hope you stay tuned for that. But that's not the only legal action we're pursuing on Lolita's behalf. As I mentioned at the beginning, she's also supposed to be protected by the Endangered Species Act. The Endangered Species Act prohibits a host of activities with protected animals, including harming them and harassing them. The population of orcas that Lolita was kidnapped from, which is known as the southern resident killer whale population, was listed as endangered in 2005. And even though the Endangered Species Act unequivocally is supposed to equally protect captive and wild members of species, when the National Marine Fisheries Service, or NMFS, listed the southern resident killer whale population without explanation and in violation of the law, it excluded Lolita from the protections that were extended to her family members in the wild. So PETA, along with others, filed a lawsuit challenging the exclusion of Lolita from that listing. That lawsuit finally forced NMFS in 2015, almost 10 years after Lolita's family members were listed, to grant the protections that her family members had. Soon after that, PETA, along with the Animal Legal Defense Fund, the Orca Network, and others, filed a lawsuit under the Endangered Species Act against the Seaquarium, challenging its harming and harassing of Lolita, including by depriving this highly social animal of companionship, holding her in the equivalent of a bathtub, and failing to protect her from the harsh sun. Testimony from world-renowned experts and the Seaquarium's own veterinary records left no question that the Seaquarium is harming and harassing Lolita in violation of the law and causing her immense suffering. The trial court judge acknowledged as much, running through a list of 13 separate injuries inflicted on Lolita by the Seaquarium, including her inability to, quote, engage in normal swimming or diving behaviors, even as compared with other orcas in captivity, resulting in physical and psychological injury, as well as frequent injury and stress caused by the incompatible dolphins she's confined with, and much more. The court further recognized that PETA and the other parties have provided evidence that Lolita engages in abnormal stereotypic behaviors that are well-recognized signs of poor animal welfare, and that her conditions at the Seaquarium, quote, likely reduce the likelihood of realizing her potential lifespan. But despite all of this, the court denied relief to Lolita. Despite long-standing recognition that it's illegal under the Endangered Species Act to treat captive and wild animals differently, she did exactly that. She denied Lolita the protections she's due under the law based solely on the fact that she had the misfortune to be kidnapped from the wild. We are, of course, appealing this outrageous decision, which undermines the Endangered Species Act and could be devastating for not just Lolita, but captive endangered animals across the country. And that appeal is pending, and I will be arguing that case on Lolita's behalf in federal appeals court, hopefully any day now. And we're asking that Lolita be released to a seaside sanctuary. So as you can see, the legal battles for Lolita have not been easy, and the wheels of justice turn incredibly slowly. But we're persistent in our fight for justice for animals, and we will not give up until Lolita is released from the Seaquarium. With the National Marine Aquarium committing to send dolphins to sanctuary, and the whale sanctuary project's work towards building the first refuge for whales in America, it's never been clearer that the days of abusive marine mammal confinement are numbered. The Seaquarium cannot justify refusing to retire Lolita to a sea sanctuary in her home waters, where the orca believed to be her mother still thrives at over 85 years old. Thank you.
Educating Director of the Cetacean Society International and Global Counsel and Chair for the World Cetacean Alliance.
Hi everybody, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, okay. I want to tell you a story. Once there was a huge forest being consumed by a fire. All the animals ran out, transfixed, as they watched the forest burning, feeling overwhelmed and powerless. Except this little hummingbird who says, I'm going to do something about the fire. So it flies to the nearby stream, takes a drop of water, puts it on the fire, and it goes up and down as fast as it can. In the meantime, all the animals, like the elephant, whose trunk could bring much more water, they are standing there helpless. And they say to the hummingbird, what do you think you can do? You're too little. The fire is too big. Your wings are too little, and your beak is so small. You can only bring one drop of water at a time. But as they continue to discourage it, the hummingbird turns to them without wasting any time and says, I'm doing the best I can. I'm not here to tell you any bad news, but I will give you some statistics. There are around 2,300 captive cetaceans around the world, 2,000 of them being bottlenose dolphins, 230 being beluga whales, 61 orca or killer whales, 28 of which were captured from the wild, and 33 born in captivity. 37 porpoises, 17 false killer whales. This is from data from March 2017, so these are the most accurate numbers that we have. I'm not here to tell you the story of Lolita or Tokite because you've already heard all the devastation that she has endured. But I will tell you, she is one of 7 orcas captured in Penn Cove near Puget Sound in 1970, as you know. You know she has been in captivity in the smallest tank in America, 35 feet wide, for 47 years. You know about Hugo. You know about her being from El Pod, the southern resident community. You know about her mother, L25. You know that she still continues to call the same dialect as her family calls in the wild. You know she is the last surviving orca of 45 members of the southern resident community that were captured and delivered to captivity for display in marine parks between 1965 and 1973. Only Corky, a member of the northern resident orca community captured in 1969, has been in captivity longer. She is at SeaWorld San Diego. I'm not here to give you up-to-date orca facts, but I'm going to do it anyway. The first orca captured from the wild and held in captivity for public display was 1961. Since then, a confirmed 156 have been taken from the wild for public display, of which 128 of those are confirmed dead. 19 confirmed Russian orcas have been taken from the Sea of Okhotsk since 2002 for captivity. At least 165 orcas have died in captivity, not including 30 miscarried and stillborn calves. This does not include the uncounted numbers of orca killed during the capture process. Or, I'm not here to tell you about current facts about dolphinaria because it's kind of bad news, but I'm going to tell you anyway. The majority of dolphinaria are located in Japan, China, United States, Russia, and Mexico. In Europe, Spain keeps the majority with 11 dolphinaria keeping over 100 animals. I'm not here to share welfare concerns such as restrictive space that we've heard speakers talk about. The largest captive facilities are just a fraction of the size of the natural home ranges of cetaceans. Orcas, for example, may travel as far as 100 kilometers a day. When denied adequate space, large, wide-ranging carnivores like orca or killer whales commonly develop behaviors such as abnormal repetitive behavior called stereotypies and heightened aggression. The conservation concerns about orca in captivity, threats to wild populations. In addition, wild captures of cetaceans for the captive industry continue to be a threat to small local populations. The dolphinaria across the world still acquire wild-caught cetaceans from Japan's Taiji drive hunt, Cuban waters, and the Sea of Okhotsk off the Russian coast. We have made this issue, just as we have made a mess of our planet. We have made mistakes with animals we claim to love. We let our emotion lead us to decisions that didn't consider what was best for the animals. Wild whales are in trouble too. Sonar, seismic for oil and gas exploration, shipping, oil spills, pollution, radiation, ship strikes, plastics ingestion, overfishing, entanglement, and commercial exploration for the world's ocean. But after all this, I am here to share good news with you. I'm here to share a message of hope. Good news, warriors. We need one another. We are united. Have you ever seen such a movement as what is happening? There have been epic movements in our history which brought about incredible change, and we are part of it. You helped bring us to this place in history. Your heart, your work, your love, your dedication, your sacrifice, your tears. We need each other. We need people who collectively make up one heart. We need those who love animals and who dedicate their lives to them. We need to work together. We need our global families to support us. And I've learned in my experience that we need more than just whale and dolphin and porpoise lovers. We need more than love as we embark on this journey to a world where cetaceans are no longer kept in concrete tanks used for entertainment. I've been a child, environment, and animal rights activist since I was old enough to write protest letters, starting with Dolphin Safe Tuna. In my teens, I've learned it's not as much about the animals we're trying to save as the people involved with saving them. Think about the amount of collaboration required to bring us all here today. Think about your life, all you've done and sacrificed to get here. Think about the hours, the days, the months, and for some of you, years, all working with the same heart, the same vision, the same planet, all in different time zones, climates, and cultures. Who else has cried rivers of tears from September to April every year? In Taiji. Who else has the image of the mama crying over her stolen baby from the video documentary Blackfish? You have it etched in your brain? I do. I know you do. Who else has wept over Tillicum's life? And more so, who else has wept over his death? You are not alone, warriors. David Kirby wrote the book Death at SeaWorld in 2012. In that time, he said, quote, "Most animals used in entertainment get to retire to a sanctuary at some point after earning money for their owners. These captive killer whales have helped generate billions of dollars with a B, billions, and kept tens of thousands of people employed. Don't we owe them something in return? With sea pens, the orcas could live a more natural life in the natural ocean without having to perform tricks for food. Tourists could come observe the animals from a discreet distance, perhaps with a naturalist on site to explain the various behaviors. Natural ones, not backflips. And of course, captive display facilities would still own the orcas and could charge admission for people to come with them, view them. It would be a PR triumph for them, something they most desperately desire. Retirement to sea pens would be good for the whales, good for the public, and good for those facilities. It is a win-win-win. And he predicted that someday this would become a reality. This was 2012. Friends, David Kirby told me when he wrote the book that the book was not about the cover-up of a killing or about the dangers of weird form of entertainment such as riding on the back of killer whales. It was more about considering whether these whales should be in captivity. This was 5 years ago. And then there was the documentary Blackfish. We have learned so much. It is clear now that we know some animals just don't do well in captivity. Orca and Lolita are one such animal. If any of you has ever piloted a plane or a boat, you know the altercation of 1 degree of our course creates monumental change in our ultimate destination. I believe we have turned the ship around. I believe we are on the right course. And the rain is here to say that. That's true. Pouring down in abundance. As a member of CSI and the World Cetacean Alliance, I have the honor and privilege of traveling to areas around the world who once embraced whaling, but who are now embracing whale watching. A vast majority of good people on this planet acknowledge whaling as part of our history. They own it and have now moved into a new dimension of peaceful cohabitation with some of the most intelligent and necessary animals on the planet. CSI began in 1974 as the Connecticut Cetacean Society. We were in the lead of the Save the Whales movement. We are responsible for creation of the one-of-its-kind life-size model of a sperm whale, Connie, who is currently on the grounds of the Children's Museum in West Hartford, Connecticut. Nearly 2 years and 5,000 volunteer hours made this possible. Connie stands as a representation of what good people with one heart and one mind can accomplish to raise awareness about cetaceans, stewardship, ocean health, and marine mammal habitats. CSI is responsible for lobbying the Connecticut legislature to designate the sperm whale as a Connecticut state animal. Connecticut embraces its whaling past. Through the whaling era, we wiped out 90% of all the world's whales. Some species have never rebounded to pre-whaling numbers. Look at how far we've come, how much we've grown, changed in a short time. Look at how the world is acknowledging our own past, owning it, working toward a better future. Look at how the paradigm is shifting. Look at the laws that are changing. Look at the business models that are changing. Look at the global shift of awareness. Think about it. You did this. You did it. I'm looking at all of you here. You did it. We did this. Our collective minds are changing now about how the world views animals in public display. We know that captivity for this species can no longer be justified. I am here to share a group hug with you all. I'm here to celebrate good people around the world who are doing great things to work toward improving the lives of cetaceans in captive display. I'm here to tell you I love you all, and I love your good hearts. I know what you want, and I'm thankful for you. I know you will not rest until we do what is right for these animals. I am here to tell you that we can and we must consider animal welfare first. I'm here to bring a message of hope. Currently, there are 10 sea sanctuaries in development around the globe. Remember that number. I'm here to tell you there is hope that we can and we will retire captive cetaceans to sea sanctuaries. I'm here to tell you I know there are good people who are working tirelessly to care for captive animals, who are volunteers, activists like you, professionals of all kinds. We need each other. We must collaborate and embrace the change. I want you to close your eyes for a second. Visualize a sea sanctuary with an orca, maybe Tokite, enjoying the rush and flow of the wind and the tides, the acres of fresh, salty sea water. Imagine the sun shining down. Imagine the moonlit sea, the call of the gulls, wild fishes to chase, rehabilitated under human care all the time. She is monitored by veterinary staff to make sure she is receiving the best health care. See the visitors paying good money to see her in her natural environment, receiving an education about a retired orca. See us all working together, one heart, one mind, one vision. It is feasible. It is profitable. They deserve more than working until they die. We are close to this reality, my hummingbirds. It is not a dream anymore. You can open your eyes. For Corky, for Hugo, for Tillicum, for Morgan, for Keiko, for the 165 plus orcas who have died in captivity, for the 50 destined for Russian captive display, for those who died during the Penn Cove captures, for Tillicum, for Lolita's mother and her family, for El Pod and the 45 Southern residents captured between 1965 and 1973, for the 4 people who have died due to orca in captivity. For us as human beings, we can work together. We can do better. We can choose to look with hope to the future that we are turning this ship around. Thank you for what you do. Now go out and do the best that you can. Spread the good news and have hope. Warrior hummingbirds. Thank you.
I would just like to say thank you again to Delci and Patricia for coming out here today and speaking at the beginning of this event. So now we're going to proceed to march through downtown Portsmouth with our signs. There will be closing statements at the end of the event, and then we will proceed to Fortree Island, where we will have a vegan potluck cookout where everyone is invited to attend.